Hello and a warm welcome to the CNBC Africa special in partnership with the eThekwini Municipality. We're coming to you live from the 17th edition of the Durban Business Fair for 2015, where the theme for this year is unlocking global partnerships and taking local businesses to the rest of the world. I'm Gugulethu Cele, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. Well, there's a popular line from a Shakespeare play, The Twelfth Night, that if music be the food of love, play on. But what if music could contribute so much more to the economic society of the globe? What if music could be used as a tool to capture as well as conquer the triple threats to the global economy, being inequality, poverty, as well as unemployment? Well, that's exactly what we're going to interrogate today. We're taking a look at the business case for music in not only the local industry, but also from the rest of the globe. And I've got a wonderful panel of experts as well as artists, not only in the local South African environment, but globally as well, who will help us interrogate this point further. Ladies and gentlemen, to my left, I'd like to introduce Kelly Price, a well-known American R&B singer, songwriter, and music producer, followed by Oscar Mlongwa, who is popularly known as DJ Oskido in the South African society. He's a local recording artist, DJ, record producer, and businessman, followed by Mthokozi Sikhathi, also known as DJ Dira, who's a South African recording artist, DJ, and businessman, and Dion Chang, not only a trend analyst, but also the founder of Flux Trends. We aren't alone. We're also joined by a wonderful audience made up of stakeholders and participants here at the Durban Business Fair, who will also be engaging in conversation with us through a Q&A session. So a warm welcome to all of you. First of all, before we get into the nitty-gritties of the discussion, I'd like us to start with the panel by getting opening sentiments, especially given the fact that as soon as I introduced each of you on stage, there was cheering, there was shouting, and lots of joy and pictures being taken by the audience members here, which clearly lets us know that there is an affiliation and an affection towards recording artists across the globe. But there's also a misperception that being in the limelight and behind the microphone comes with a lot of wealth, success, as well as access funds. Is that a negative perception, perhaps, Kelly, to start off with you, that we need to break, that not all recording artists actually make multi-millions throughout their careers?
That is correct. Recording artists generally find themselves, with the exception of, I say that there are a rare few who actually reach a level of such success financially that they're set for life, and their children and their children's children are set for life. We have found ourselves as artists a lot of times locked into contracts, a lot of times that we don't even understand the language. And even with hiring lawyers, there are just things that, I don't know if I'm the only one that can relate to it, that you never quite fully understand, even when they try to break down to you what the numbers are of what you'll get from every record. It's usually like a percentage of a penny or a couple of cents per unit. That broken down by what they've paid for your makeup artist and your hairstylist and your wardrobe stylist, and to shoot the video and to actually make the record. So for most artists will actually never see a royalty check from an album. Most artists will never see a royalty check from an album because of recouping and all of these expenses that go along with it. So performing really has become, and I believe for a long time, most of the time, has been the primary source for the artists to actually see the fruits of their labor. But I think that has to change. I think we've been inside of a business where you have artists who are so creative, and they are extremely intelligent, but not really understanding that and never really being taught what those things are in the breakdown of a contract. And I don't think it's necessary that as artists we need to know every element of the contract, but we do need to know how we're being, or in many cases not being paid. And there is a way and a formula that would allow for artists to participate in the revenue share of the sales of their own creativity.
Precisely. I see DJ Dira nodding his head quite aggressively. Just before we come to you to get your sentiments, especially given the fact that both yourself and Oskido have morphed into not just recording artists, but also businessmen who lead up their own empires and allow for the employment as well as economic emancipation of others within the music industry. Just a quick reminder to those as well who are in the audience and even at home who'd like to participate in the conversation on Twitter. The hashtag is DBF2015, DBF2015, and you can also potentially pose your questions to our panelists. But Dira, Oskido, let's start off with you, Dira, to get your response to the misperceptions about lots of money being in the industry.
Yeah, well, sometimes the mistake that our artists make is that when they start to get money, They splash it everywhere. They don't know how to control the money. You get excited, you got your first check. Finally, you've been looking for this money, now you have it, and then you don't know what to do with it. You know, we need to invest money right. We need to build our careers. But sometimes the artists themselves, they just splash it everywhere, and then that will not help you in the future because this money will still run out, and then you'll remain broke. So it's very, very important that they need to be taught as well that, you know what, this fame that you have right now might soon tomorrow be gone, but you need to be left with something. So you really need to know how you control your money and how you invest it. You know, they buy fancy cars, clothes, and whatever. You know, you forget about that. At least invest on property and do something that's going to be there tomorrow.
You say taught, and I'd like to address that question to you as well, Oskido, in addition to getting your opening remarks. Who needs to teach the artists about this? Because they're living up to a stereotype that we as the consumers of the music actually create. So they're trying to fulfill our fantasies of them. Who needs to teach them about financial emancipation and financial education? Oskido?
Well, I think, you know, given the facts of the background where we come from, you know, I always don't want to use this black people or whatever, you know, the poor backgrounds where we've grown up, it becomes difficult. It's not only an artistic problem. I'm sure the problem which Tira is talking about, it applies across the bridge. It's either, across the board, it's either a person is a soccer player, you know, guys who are getting tenders, once they get, you know, it's the background, you know, how we grew up. So therefore, it's a collective thing which you need us, as you see, I'm talking from an artist background and also as a record label owner, that it's a collective effort, you know, for the society to sort of like teach people how, you know, to handle, you know, this kind of thing. But, you know, for example, I've been an artist, you know, and now I'm running around, helping artists as well, because I own a record label. So every time you teach them and then you say, okay, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do. But at the end of the day, you can do so much. You know, after that, this guy just wants to be seen driving this flashy car. And at the end of the day, you find that he's got no place to sleep. He's got nothing. All he wants to be seen is that, you know what, he has to drive that car. And, you know, you control it to a certain extent, so it becomes difficult.
I'm tempted here to share the internal joke between the three musical panelists with regard to more money, more problems. And you all know who sang the chorus to that song. But Dion, we don't want to leave you out of this conversation because clearly you've been seeing the trends, and as these musicians sit here on stage, and even us as consumers, we've seen the change. Back in 1983, when Michael Jackson released his debut album, Thriller, 93% of the revenues generated by global record companies came from the actual selling of LPs, EPs, and even records themselves. Fast forward to 2012, where now 52% of the revenue that's being made by global recording companies actually comes from a digital platform. And I understand that today it's more than above 70% that actually comes from a digital platform, and some of that revenue is also unaccounted for due to the streaming and other methods in which consumers get their music to listen to. As musicians and as individuals who consume this music, have we not been adequately prepared to see the change and adapt to the times correctly? Or is it still a threat?
I think it's still a threat. I watch the music industry very, very carefully in terms of business trends, and I track disruptive technologies on businesses, and I use the music industry as a case study of repeated disruptions. So I say to the other industries, if you think that your industry is going to be disrupted, say, by digitization, once over, you might have recovered from that, but I prove with the music industry model that your disruption comes in waves. So, for example, 2003, iTunes opened its stores and you could buy one track and serve album. That was a huge revolution already. And then you factor in all the different formatting that's quaint things called CDs.
Dion, I'm going to have to interject there for a moment. It does seem as though on air we're not getting your mic through efficiently, but let's get a review from the South African artists as well, because I understand that the elements that you allude to being iTunes, all of that really took place in developed economies before it actually unfolded here in South Africa. With the recent launch though, Oskido Tira, are we adequately prepared? We've seen it unfold in developed economies. Is South Africa prepared with a game plan to address the digital age of music?
Yeah, I think at the moment, this is where we're going to if you look at what's happening, that the physical sales, they've sort of like gone down. If you look at, long back, you could check that there were so many outlets, music outlets selling physical sales. But right now, we've only got Musica, being the outlet. And when you go to Musica lately, you can see that they're also moving into gaming and all that. Actually, the past 2 months, there haven't been, there was a situation where they were not taking our product because they are the only retailer. They used to, Musica as an outlet, they used to have about, say, 10% of the market share. But right now, because most of the music outlets have closed down, they are on about maybe 80% of the market share. So therefore, it has become a problem. So therefore, at the moment, when I look at our royalty statement compared to what I used to get, we're making more money on digital, because mobile platforms have come in. If you can, there's a 30 seconds things every time you call a person, you hear that song. For me, that's the biggest revenue which is coming in. MTN, they call them caller tunes. With Vodacom, they call RB tones. But what's happening is that in terms of the royalty checks, mobile platforms have become the biggest in terms of the digital space. So therefore, we're definitely moving into a digital era, and we have to accept that.
Kelly, to get your view, clearly this comes as an opportunity, but also a particular threat, because with digital and online platforms, we know about piracy also taking place. I'm sure if we go into downtown, we'll see a few of your CDs on the streets available at a very favorable price to consumers. But in the States, has it been read the same way, especially what we've seen in the headlines between Taylor Swift and Apple?
What we have is a pie that's not getting any larger, but it is being divided up more and more. And so when you talk about the digital space and all of these other ways to get music, I feel like when these methods became available to receive music, everybody was really excited. But what they were really designed for was for the instant gratification needs of or desires of the consumer. We want it now. We want it now. And now becomes sooner, and then sooner becomes even sooner. So with those platforms being available, as wonderful as they are, the technology is available. It's great. We're moving forward and advancing in our technology. But because we haven't been properly prepared for it, because we're really not, it keeps going back to education. I think that as this same size pie, because again, the pie is not getting any larger, it's just being divided up a lot more with all of these other ways that have become available to now, to now find other ways for other people to share in what it is that we're doing. Artists, what we need to do is find a way to be a part of those other slices that are coming out of this pie so that we can maintain our ownership, see more of the fruits of our labors. So it's wonderful. The technology is great. And then with Taylor Swift, actually, I salute her. I salute her. I thought what she did was very brave, and I'm glad that someone with a voice decided to stand up, not just for herself, but it ended up being a victory for all music artists to know that she told them, they're a huge global company. You can't sell my music if you're going to give it away for free. And what happens? I didn't agree for you to give it away for free. You didn't agree to have your music given away for free. So for 3 months, millions and millions of people get to download my music, and I don't see any of that. And then where do we have the opportunity to kind of pump the brakes and say, well, no, that doesn't happen. So, with the technology, there has to be better solutions, and I know that there are solutions out there, but I think there's going to have to be a high level of pressure where artists unite and decide to have a voice, and that may be getting rid of some fear. Like you would have to speak, and you would have to speak as well. But to decide that we want to be able to receive from what it is that we do. It's our blood, it's our sweat, it's our tears, they're our stories, it's our emotions, and we're putting it out there, and the world gets to benefit from it. And again, there's a wonderful car that's being driven, and a lot of times, no home to go home to.
Exactly.
And sorry, coming into that, the Taylor Swift story, worked, for her. But if you can look at, for us, the territory, here in the African territory, things have changed. For example, artists are getting to give out their music for free for a certain extent. I'll give you an example. The biggest artist at the moment, his name is Casper Nyovest. That guy he's unknown, and then he gave out his music for free. and radio stations, the music started becoming popular in the townships and all that. Him without a record label. But radio stations started playing his music. But at the moment, he's the biggest thing. And by the time when we saw that, his music was for free, I went to him and said, let's put this thing on iTunes. And we dropped his record, and it became the biggest selling record on iTunes last year. But he started by giving his music for free. That's why I'm saying that at times it works, especially in our territory. At times it doesn't work. That's why I'm saying the Taylor Swift story worked for her, because she's a well-established artist.
Having said that, Dion, I'd like to come to you. I understand your mic is working now.
Good.
Following the sentiments that have been shared by the artists here on stage and the evolution of music, as we say, and the consumption thereof, how best should we be reacting to the current musical environment then?
I think it is a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, what's really happened with digitization in the music industry is that collapse of the value chain. So pre-digital, your artist would have to record, find a record label, get that recorded, get it produced, and then find a distribution channels, the music stores, and then get it to the end consumer. With digitization, especially with social media, you have your top global artists with followers of 40 to 60 million on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever the platform is. And now you can record on really sophisticated software almost at home. I mean, Beyonce shot her video on her balcony with a phone. And you whisper and you say, well, something's dropping on for streaming. And all of that value chain is gone. So on the one hand, there's huge advantages for people. So like you're saying, Casper was able to give away that free music and get that trajectory. But on the other hand, you're looking at the streaming model and how much, and that was Taylor Swift's point. It was not only just giving away for free, but is the artist getting all of the little percentages? Because if that pie, as Kelly said, is sliced so thinly, you can't track where all things are going. So for me, we're in this not knowing territory, and there's a fork in the road where things can happen really quickly for artists, and you can cut out that middleman. But then the swing of the trends pendulum always comes back, and you're starting to see the resurgence of vinyl and outdated formats because people have a different affiliation to ownership instead of just a binary code on your phone. So there's so many nuances, and I don't think we fully, as I said, if the viewers didn't hear the first time around, was that the disruption comes in waves in the music industry, and you don't really know which wave you have to ride, and which ones are going to come and change the game as well, because the game changes all the time.
Mentioning the James change, did I go ahead?
Yeah, I think somehow even the website, the download website that we have available on the internet, they need to be managed somehow. Like, it's cool when a guy releases a download for free for you to just download, but like we had a case where a person just decided to have links for the whole Big Nas album available from track 1 to track 15. For everyone just flying on WhatsApp to download.
Kelly is shocked by that. So clearly this is
now that becomes a problem, and I think that's when our government needs to intervene, because I think in Russia they managed to regulate the sites that are available in the country for download. Now, if there's a site from USA, you don't even know who's who, and then you have to try contact that person to say, hey, in your site, there's someone who's just decided to upload my whole album for everyone to download for free. Then it becomes a problem. But at least if we know that, okay, fine, there's just 1 or 2, 3 sites that are available in the country for anyone to upload music on, and if there's a problem, it's easier for you to reach out to that site and say, okay, this person is uploading illegally, can you just shut him down or something like that? Then it would be easy.
Let's explore that theme, because fundamentally the backdrop of the Durban Business Fair for this year is connecting businesses globally. And here we have artists and individuals in business also connecting globally. From a regulatory perspective, you bring up Russia. I understand their challenges as well in the US with copyright laws. And even in South Africa, despite the fact that we have SAMRO, it does seem as though when it comes to reimbursing the owners of that music, as well as even getting the royalties back. Oskido, you did say the tide is changing slightly when it comes to mobile. But fundamentally, are we finding that our governments are speaking to each other. And with you as individuals, as artists here, are the governments themselves in your relevant jurisdictions listening to your voices, heeding your calls, and pushing for the increased protection and rights of the music? Oscar, let's get your view before we come to Kelly.
Maybe it's better I will speak on an African perspective. If you can see, throughout Africa, South Africa is the only country which I can say it's got the proper structure, for music business. When you look at markets like Nigeria, for example, these guys, as soon as they finish recording at the studio, he goes to the pirates, he presses 1 million CDs, or he goes to the pirates, he sells his master for 50,000 rands, and then the pirate just, goes and prints 5-10 million. Then it's actually they're giving out for free, So therefore, there isn't, these guys that get surprised when they come here, Nigerian artists, when they see how formalized, when we start talking about Samro publishing and all the other revenue streams, how we make money. Because for them, once that record gets popular, they go and, their bookings become, the biggest thing. If you can look at a high-profile artist on our Kwaito era, we charge maybe about, say, 40,000 rands, but the Nigerian artists will go and charge 40,000 US to 50,000 US or 80,000 US. So therefore, for them, they've looked at that. So therefore, it's very difficult when you talk about governments, but the good thing is that at least here in South Africa, we've got a government which is listening, and then, that's why the music has always been formalized. But when you go anywhere all over Africa, there is no market. Nigerian market only became now bigger when MTN came in and introduced this 30 seconds thing. And if you can see that thing, that's when they started to make money from the music business. Otherwise, they're focusing on gigs.
I want us to explore that as well, and if we can build up on the question that I asked Oscar about the regulatory environment, Kelly.
Don't be shocked, Kelly.
No, I had a question.
This is Africa.
Go
I
ahead.
had a question. I want to make sure that I heard you clearly. Are you saying that the artists are formalizing partnerships with the pirates?
Yes, in Nigeria it's like that. As long as I drop my master from the pirate, I say, here it is. They are working with the pirate. For them, they'll go in, they sell their master, and then from there, the pirates, they distribute their music. As long as this music becomes popular, they start making money on gigs. They don't care how much. It's something else.
Oh.
Yeah.
What's your response to that? And Dion, I want you to weigh in as well, if that's a potential solution. But Kelly, your response?
What's my response? My response is a question. I wonder what Sony and those companies would think about that. Yeah. Finish the record and go have a conversation with my man in the building down the street and say, listen, here's the master. That's very interesting. And I understand what you're saying. You're saying that I really, really get what you're saying. I'm going to tell you something. I don't think that would ever happen in the States, only because, you know what? And I think that's the problem with why we're having such a hard time having our music protected, is because what's being protected are corporations primarily. And that's even the reason why I always say things that are not popular, but you have the people who are sitting behind the desks who are very well taken care of, and the people who are actually making the music that are making sure those people behind the desk are very well taken care of are not so very well taken care of. So what you're saying is the artists have decided, since the pirates are going to get it anyway, let me just go have a conversation.
Yeah, and here's my album.
Fix this up.
We can tell your shock and horror, but Dion, I want you to finish up. You can go ahead and finish up, and Dion, you weigh in on this.
Shocked, not necessarily horrified, because what I feel like that's evolution as well. I think that what you find, there's the old saying, if you can't beat them, then join them. And if they are actually becoming the new distribution company, then distribute on and let's share in the profits. I don't know that would ever work again, because corporations have such protections. And so when you have companies like Sony and you have companies like Zamba, and that they will make sure, and I'm sure they will find every federal regulation under the sun to make sure that they're protected inside of that. But with that, what I would love to see happen is that there's a push that hard to make sure that the artists are being protected as well, because at the end of the day, we're here having this conversation because it's us who have been so poorly represented and so under represented in the revenue sharing side of the thing that we actually get up and do every day. We live and breathe and sleep this music, and I, like you, have started a label, and I've put my last 3 projects out as an independent with distribution, and it's different. It's very different, but I love it because my thing is if I have to take the fall for it anyway, you know, in the public eye, if it's bad and if it hits a brick,
it's all you.
It's all me. So since I have to do that anyway, whether I'm with a major or not, then let me be responsible for it. And then that way, if it's success too, then yes, I put my heart, my soul, my blood, my sweat, my tears into it. But I actually think that what you're doing in Nigeria is brilliant. And I know that every record exec in the United States, if they can see this, when they see it, they're cringing and they are cursing my name right now. Yeah. But I understand that. If the piracy business has come in and they have become the major distribution and where the consumer is going above and beyond the regular outlets, then find a way to involve them. It's the same that they do with hackers. Some of them end up getting hired to become security analysts for major, you know, digital corporations. I think we have to find a way to evolve and protect everyone, especially my fellow music makers.
I like that, evolve and adapting to the environment.
Yes.
But Dion, I think also consumers need to be made aware as well of the repercussions of their actions when we do buy those CDs from pirated distributors, especially if there isn't an allegiance between the artist and themselves, because I understand that impacts your pockets quite significantly.
Every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Dion, for you to weigh in on this one, because it's not sustainable, right, choosing the relationship with pirates?
I'm not sure, because it's really interesting. As I said, we're hurtling headlong very fast into the unknown. And exactly what Kelly was saying, if I take it just out into an e-commerce example for you, Flipkart, it's the biggest online store in India. It's the Amazon of India. They are now studying how the double wallers. So if you don't know what the double wallers are the guys that deliver people's lunches. They literally go to a house and take a hot lunch and then deliver it to somebody's office. They do 260,000 transactions in a 6-hour period every single day, and their margin of error is 1 in 6 million. Harvard Business School is studying this distribution channel. So what Oskita and Kelly is saying is there a better way of doing a distribution channel? And now everything is up in the air because it's a kind of a wild west. The digitization of industries has made the borders very, very porous. The regulations are still trying to catch up. And you take a company like Uber, for example. They say, well, we're not a transport company, we're a technology company. So the regulators are trying to put them into a box which doesn't exist. And I think now's that opportunity. For me, I look at shifting trends not as what gets lost, but what are the gaps that you can take and reinvent a new model. So I say to people, don't think out the box, just reimagine the entire packaging.
Reimagine the entire packaging. We'll leave it on that note as we cross to a quick ad break. Do stay tuned. We will continue this discussion on the business of the music industry here, live at the Durban Business Fair for 2015. See you shortly. A warm welcome back to this live debate here on CNBC Africa, where we're coming to you from the Durban Business Fair for 2015 from the ICC here in Durban. Well, as you can tell, we still continue with our conversation regarding the business of the music industry, and new revelations have been made, and we might manage to bring Kelly Price into SA or Nigeria if things going according to plan.
Have a conversation with the new distribution company.
Exactly. But what I'd like us to get into now is, especially given the fact that we are broadcasting this for a business channel, and we've got individuals who are part of the business society here and stakeholders in that environment, and yourselves here on stage are business individuals, is the economic contribution that we can see from the music industry into the global GDP figures. From a South African point of view, in 2014, the Minister of Arts and Culture, Nathi Mthethwa, mentioned that the creative industry in South Africa, of which music forms a part of, contributed only 2.4% to our annual GDP. Now, this pales in comparison to the double-digit figures, which are upwards of 11%, that we see in more developed economies like the US, including Europe. Oskita, I'd like to come to you here. Are we failing to understand the kind of impact that the creative industries and music in particular can have on GDP and economic growth in a country?
Yes, I feel so, because it's always been the case that, you know, it starts from just ordinary people. Once you're saying you're in the music business, it's like, you know, people don't take you serious and they don't understand that we're running businesses. I mean, I remember the first time I met Stira, it was back in the days, you know, he was just putting posters and we organize our gigs, you know, together. But at the end of the night, you know what, we'll share, you know, and I'll have money for my flight and I'll have money when I get home to buy groceries and pay school fees. So therefore, if you can check what's happening in terms of the money which is coming in the music industry from the events which we're doing, things which we're doing. So, you know, there's a lot there. And it's only that people don't really take music serious as a business. And that's why, I mean, for us to sit in platforms like this, you know, it's like, it's amazing. And I always look at my guys who I started at school with, who are doctors, you know, and then what I'm doing. And they was like, you know what, they're surprised where this thing has taken us, you know, what we've developed in terms of helping other artists, because we sign artists, but those artists are able, you know, to, you know, take food on the table to help their families and all that. So therefore, it does contribute a lot.
What role then can individuals who are in the business fraternity and in this room today play with regard to being active economic participants in the music industry? I think we might have a few examples, Kelly, that you can share in the US, but Dion, I'd also like to come to you because in Cape Verde, which is an island nation but part of the African continent, it has the most musicians per capita. Now that's because in 2012 they established what they call the Culture Bank, and their financiers from different parts of the industry come in and contribute financially to investing in musicians in that particular country. Will we ever see a day, perhaps, where musicians like yourself have this own fund for Africans or even globally where musicians can participate and the capital is there to invest in the music industry? Dion, is that a particular trend we can pick up on?
Well, I do think it is, because what I'm picking up is because we're entering this new world order of industries and new industries and collapsed value chains and new businesses, it requires a completely different skill set. And I think this is where governments might sit up, because I think especially in a South African context, we look at, say, design or fashion design or the kind of cultural right brain kind of industries as cultural ideology rather than as business, and we should really look at it as business. But I think things are changing so rapidly. So one example that just happened last month was Ian Rogers. He's the guru of Silicon Valley of online streaming, and he was with Beats, which Apple bought from Dr. Dre for like $3 billion, and he had just set up Apple's radio and Beats setup, and he was just poached by LVMH in France for the luxury goods sector. So what you're starting to get is a very, very cross-pollination of skill sets in different businesses. So someone who is a specialist in online music and digitization is going to head up the digital strategy for a luxury goods conglomerate. And that's huge news. So you're starting to see all of this kind of thing. And I think once this cross-pollination starts happening, people are going to say, well, hang on, this is really, really interesting. You know, and I'm just seeing the mantra coming through in a lot of businesses in terms of recruitment. It's not your credentials anymore. It's your experience and your connections and how you do things rather than an academic credential sheet to do things. So things are changing very, very rapidly. And I think this is where the right-brainers are going to sort of take over, because we are definitely moving into a world that is led by the right brain and not the left brain.
Kelly, from the US perspective, a lot of artists going independent, as you alluded to. You've also joined that party. But yes, the financing, where does that come from?
Oh, my God. Well, I can tell you that when I made the decision to go independent, I financed much of it. I took a chance on me, and I realized that a lot of people may not have that opportunity, but it's what I decided to do. Relationships obviously help. Having worked with a lot of people down through the years and maintaining those relationships, it's great to be able to pick up the phone and call. But I think that for an artist such as myself, who's been around for a long time, I'm like a friendly dinosaur that you love to see come. I'm not going to eat up all your vegetation. The great thing about being an artist that is independent in today's music climate is that because people already know who I am, I don't have to break through for people to know who Kelly Price is. They just need to know when the new music is coming and where I can find it. But as an independent, you do get an opportunity you get a chance, you have to watch. You get a chance to see how the money is being made. You're watching more closely if you're the one that's actually spending it. It's not just a budget that someone else is managing or administering on your behalf. You're watching every dollar, every cent that goes out the window. And what you realize is that you can get things done a lot more efficiently and without spending as lavishly and produce the same quality product. So it will teach you discipline. It will, one of two things, it will tank you if you're not willing to be disciplined, or it will teach you the greatest discipline on how to achieve an incredible thing and not, be so superfluous or just go over the board with spending. I think the way of the indie is going to be, I think that's going to grow. I think we're going to see more independent artists. Back home in the United States, we're fortunate enough to have outlets like the Essence Music Festival, which I participate in pretty much every year, have done for almost 10 years. And it is a platform that gives way to musicians and singers and every person that touches the stage. You have to use that microphone, you have to use your voice, you have to have live instruments, there has to be real singing going on, and so it's a celebration of music. And so it is, I would have to say, the largest music festival, celebration, cultural event that takes place in our country all year long, celebrating this, what we do, and it's a requirement that you do that to come to this festival. So I believe even seeing more things like that pop up globally, or perhaps having Essence global in countries all over the world.
To the Durban one.
Listen,
You'll
listen,
be here.
will I be here? Sure, I'm going to be here.
If I'm not mistaken, you might have competition when it comes to Durban Rocks as well. So it might be Essence Rocks Durban or Durban Rocks Essence, because that's also another initiative that you have, DJ Tira.
I think we should ask for Essence to come. I think we should ask for Essence to come.
We've got Joy in the audience. We'll get a microphone to her briefly to get her response. But I actually want to explore on these potential partnerships as well as, like you say, the emergence of independent record producers and diversifying their income streams and portfolios. It's not just about that gig and getting a couple thousand rands or dollars, but it's about the events management element of it, ensuring that you digitize your music and have partnerships with corporates, as you alluded to as well, some of the cell phone networks here in South Africa. But often it is said that capital is cowardly. And for a lot of investors out there, they need certainty, they need policy clarity, and they want to make a return on their investment. DJ Tira, to come to you and get your views on capital in the South African aspect of things, especially given the fact that our economy is not growing at rates which we expect it to, and we often find that corporates tend to sit on the money instead of distributing it out, especially to members of the music industry.
Yeah, well, it's important to remember that music or money in music is not only made by the guy behind the microphone. Lately, we've got a lot of clothing brands that we do as record labels or as artists. I mean, you can see my man Oskido here is rocking his cap, and Oskido cap. There are Fact Up and Rocks t-shirts that are available. So that's when we need to work together with people that want to do business with musicians, because distribution can be a huge problem. I mean, if it was easy that we'll just have if it was easy to take this cab and go to Edgar's or one of these retail shops and make a deal with them that please distribute this cab for me and sell it to the whole nation, and it would be easy to make money, but distribution is always a problem as well to make money that way. But we just need to work together. Hopefully, our government is also trying to help us finance our events so that at least we get even bigger numbers, market it well. But yeah, there's still a lot to be done.
Yeah, but to come into that, I think, in our situation, corporate doesn't support the music industry. I think if the government of today wasn't here, to support all the events, because they are the ones who support, most of our, events. So when you look at corporate South Africa today, I mean, even me, when I have to go and negotiate a deal for a distribution of my cabs, it's like, they will look at me, but they will try to squeeze me. But when it comes to supporting the music industry, you know what, they will come in at a tiny little thing, or they will send you pillar to post. So therefore, I think, the government has done well, to support us in terms of holding the festivals which we have. And we must applaud our government, for doing that.
And it starts with the municipality, as we see here in eThekwini. So
yes,
clearly something.
Yeah, when I talk government, I'm talking about the municipality as well, because it's part of the government, yeah.
Clearly
do you get support from the corporate in the state?
There are a lot of corporate partnerships with artists that take place. And whenever those partnerships can happen, they're always beneficial, I think, for the corporations, but especially for the artists. I think that that's another part of the monetization and the evolution. Really, it needs to be a revolution, because it needs to happen a lot more quickly now, where artists are beginning to understand that they're not just performers, but that they, as a total package, are a brand, and that anything that they can represent and represent well now has to become a part of the presentation of my music, whether it's your cap, or if it's me in a pair of glasses or a pair of jeans, or anything that people may know to be common when they see Kelly Price, or when they see, any artist. All of that, it's all of the layers, it's all of the elements. Moving forward, there is no way possible to be financially successful and to be able to stabilize yourself as an artist, I think, if you remain one-dimensional. And so with that, again, I hate to sound like, I'm beating a dead horse, but education. But how do we get the artists to a place where they can hear and be taught and understand that moving forward, it's not just about singing. And I say all the time, I actually have written a book that I've not yet released, and the title of that book is But I Just Want to Sing. It is no longer good enough to just want to sing. You have to know the business of music. You have to know about marketing yourself, because you can hire a team to do that all day long, but when your team is off on the side and you're sitting in this chair and the cameras are on you and the lights are on you and you have to tell people who you are as a brand and what your vision is, if you can't articulate that, then everything falls. There's a big moment of silence where there should have been a whole lot to say so that the world gets to see who you are. The solution is...
Exactly. More than just wanting to sing, but a multi-pronged solution, no doubt, that will take several partnerships to take place in the industry. We've got about 10 minutes for Q&A, and this is the part where we'd like to come to our audience members who have any questions or comments that they'd like to get from our panelists. I see a hand in the back. If you do have a question, we'll take them in a series of 4 for the moment, and potentially limited to that due to time pressures. I saw a hand for the gentleman there. There's another hand there, and then we'll come to the gentleman in the center, and the next hand that comes up will get the question here up front. Please keep it brief and concise, sir, due to time pressures today. Go ahead.
Good day to everyone. My name is Martin Gobo. I'm from Pietermaritzburg. I like to use this opportunity. I was trying to conduct the big fishes of the music industry in South Africa, because I was doing a research to come with a solution to stopping the illegal downloading of CD copying. And I got theories that are supported by the fact. And if you can check the meaning of the word theory, and then the word theory say the theory that is supported by the fact, but it's 99% that it will come with the results that say the thing that we want to solve, it is 100%.
If I'm not mistaken, sir, just to ensure that we have enough time for everyone else to ask their question, you're asking with regard to preventing the illegal downloads of music.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We will respond to that and give the panelists an opportunity. If we may move on to the next speaker due to time pressures. So thank you so much for your question. The next speaker at the back, if you could please keep it very brief, sir, and concise.
Good afternoon. My name is Mpendulo Keswa. My question to the panel, especially the creatives, is that Ms. Price just said you can't be one-dimensional as an artist. Now, I'd like to know, going forward with you guys, what's next? Are we ever going to see a space where we have maybe Oskido Pharmaceuticals, Tira Aviation, or Price Technologies? Or are you just going to stick to the music industry and the creative arts? Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll take one more question, very brief. I see a hand in the center here. Whoever the mic gets to first will take. The gentleman over there with the spectacles. If you could please stand and keep your question very brief, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. My name is Sain Tuli from the University of Forte. I would like to ask this question to the panel. Is it still necessary to be chasing the physical distribution, given the fact that the industry is really moving to the digitalization of the whole thing? And secondly, the second question is, Oskido made an example of what is happening in Nigeria. My question will be, given the fact that also Kelly Price mentioned that the source of income nowadays for artists is live performance, would it then make business sense, Oskido perhaps and theater, in South Africa to encourage artists to go the same route of giving their music for free or giving their music to the to be pirated? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions. What we'll try to do is to get each of the panelists just to respond to those questions. The first one naturally being the how to curb the issue regarding illegal downloads. I think we touched on that briefly with regard to regulations, but Dion, maybe if you can respond to that, and maybe one of the other artists.
I think, it's one of the most difficult things, especially with the digitization of any business. And intellectual property is going to be harder and harder and harder to capture and enforce. It's going to be the most difficult thing to do, but it's to keep one step ahead. So if you look at what is happening with, I mentioned the cross-pollination of skills in industries, but you're starting to see the same thing happen in the broadcast media, and this affects artists and where they put out their stuff. So from a music streaming system like Spotify are now doing video, and they're starting to put news feeds on. So there's a big mix-up. So Instagram has a specific music industry feed. There's YouTube are moving into that kind of thing. So I think what Kelly was saying as well is education. I think you need to educate yourself. You need to be aware of what's happening outside of your industry all the time, and especially on these digital platforms like social media, because the blunt question is you're not going to stem the flow of pirating. When your stuff is digitized, especially if you look at social media, you put something out, and you delete it, it's not gone. It is always going to be there. So it's really to keep up and one step ahead of the competitors, and do something really radical like give it to the pirates and do a new distribution scheme.
Let's perhaps follow up with that question, which was the last one. Is it still necessary to go with physical distribution? So partner with the pirates, continue with gigs, or use mobile as a new avenue to move forward in?
I think here in South Africa, there's no way we are following the Nigerian route. We're still making some good money from physical distribution. Maybe the first step will be going across the road and clean up all those Nigerian guys are selling our music illegal there. Because maybe if we can make an example, if the police can take that matter serious and really start arresting people that are selling our music on the streets, maybe we'll see a rise in increase in physical sales. But there's still a lot of money to be made on physical. People are still buying CDs. I mean, from Guamashu to Umlazi, they're still supporting us. But yeah, we're not doing very good. I mean, the record sales, Oskido, they've just changed the gold status now from 20,000 to 15,000 copies. That's starting from November, and platinum is gone down from 40 to 30,000. That just shows how bad we're doing.
Will that still be relevant? If we can just follow up on that. Will one day the record sales, that plaque that you receive, we often see you getting on music shows where they congratulate you on either reaching a gold or platinum status. Will that be relevant in the future?
It got to be, because we still love to hang it in our rooms, and it looks beautiful. But until we do something, until we do something very serious about people that are selling our music illegal, it's going to be a problem.
To close off with, and just to get a response as well, going forward, you alluded to the fact that your book, I Just Want to Sing, clearly it needs to go beyond that. Oskido, the question was directed to you as well as the local gentleman, and even yourself, Kelly. More than music, is that an opportunity? Because we know that musicians are leaders in social society. Not only are they celebrities, but they're individuals of significant influence. And that's why we see a lot of corporate companies and the endorsements, the covers of the magazines as well. Joy, if I can allude to you. But more than music, is that also an education phase that needs to take place with young and up-and-coming artists to know that they can do more than just sing?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I would say that where you find a person who is creative, they're generally creative in more than one way. There's something other than just that one thing that you know them to do that they can do and actually do very well. I just think that artists need to know at this point that thing that you love, whether it's rapping or if it's singing or if you're a producer, a songwriter, you're going to have to make the decision to find other avenues to present yourself. And all roads lead back to what you love, no matter what. I think no matter what it is I find myself in doing, whether it's acting or producing a clothing line for plus-size women, producing a clothing line for plus-size women, people will always remember their first love. They will always remember the day they heard me sing Friend of Mine for the very first time. So the more ways you find to bring attention to your brand, the more ways you have to expose your love, which is your music, which will keep you moving forward. It will keep people buying your music, because when people love you, they want to know everything about you and they want to be able to get a piece of everything that is you. And so yes, the education process to understand that it has to be multidimensional.
Oskido, you wanted to add there?
No, it's very important. That's why it's always we always talk about education, and especially now the artists these days, you have to express yourself. If you can see the biggest platforms these days, you can do it without radio. You know, I mean, both me and Dira, we command close to 2 million, people on social network. Right now, if I can post something, you know what I'm saying? So therefore, these days are always, at times, I want to express myself, but because I hated comprehension so much at school, it's difficult for me to express myself on social network, and it has caught up with me. So therefore, the artists of today, if you can see the most successful artists, is these artists who are now successful on social network, because therefore that education is very important, because you've become a marketer yourself.
Yes. Precisely. We've got a few minutes before that. Dion, sorry, you wanted to add in
yes,
there as
possibly
well.
just a final cherry on the top of this, because we've talked a lot about the digitization of music and the challenges of that. And I think, especially in the trends world, you've got that pendulum swing back, and the more we move into a digitized era, the more tactility matters. And if you're in marketing and if you're in the retail experience, you'll understand the terms about experiential marketing. And I think what musicians need to do is also create that experience. So it is how you personify that brand, and whatever means it comes out. So one of the earliest manifestations was Bjork, who did who sent out an album, but there was a video component to every single thing. It was sort of a breakthrough moment in the music industry, and it's doing that kind of stuff. So the question is, it's not just what the music is, but what experience do you give your fan base as well.
Exactly. Having said that, we've got about 3 minutes to wrap up the conversation, and I'd like to get your closing points and to bring it back home to the Durban Business Fair that we're at here. We've touched on innovation, digital, as you've alluded, the cross-pollination as well, and education and diversifying the brand and income streams of musicians. Back to the globalization of the theme and the partnerships with the stakeholders in the room. How then do we ensure that everybody in this room can participate in the business of music in order to ensure that we don't make a one-hit wonder, but records that stand the test of time? Katie, let's start with you.
Well, I say to make sure that we have records that stand the test of time, we have to make sure that we are still providing avenues and platforms for people who make that kind of music. It's a continued challenge, but I mentioned it before, but live stage opportunities and festivals, such as the Essence Music Festival and the different festivals that you have, which are governments, you get, oh my God, sponsorship is wonderful. Providing those elements, providing those places where it can live and breathe and people can come and support the artists that they love. And I don't want to want to take up all the time because I can be long-winded, but that'll be my, yes.
Very brief.
Yes.
He said we get everyone to say something.
Yes.
Apologies, Kelly.
No problem.
A minute and a half, Oscar?
Well, I think for me it's to understand that the music business has changed. It's no longer about, you know, the song can travel in different places, you know, in terms of revenue, you can do different things. So therefore, even people who are not in the music business, you know, they have to say, how can we make this song live in different avenues, you know, for it to create different revenue streams. And this is the time now because, you know, things have changed. And if you are running the business, you have to know that ability to change is very important for you to succeed. And there is a chance in the music industry.
Adapt or die. DJ Dira?
Yeah, I think our youth, they need to take advantage of such seminars that are put together by our government, Durban Tourism, Municipality, because if you don't come to these functions, you won't learn and you won't know. And there are workshops that also we do host from Umlazi to Kwamashu. They need to attend those because that's when they can get the knowledge. You know, we get musicians coming all the way from overseas to come and share the stage with us and just talk about our experiences in the music industry. If you don't attend those things, you won't exactly get to understand how we do our business.
Exactly. Dion, very briefly from your
Yeah,
point.
just I think you know, you see globally silos between industries and industries within companies are breaking down. So whether you are in the music industry, is look cross industry, see what other industries are doing, and see if that template can apply to yours, and you might be surprised that you find a completely different way, a new way of doing things.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. A big thank you to all our panelists. Dissecting the issue of the business of music. We can continue for hours on end, but that will have to happen offline. A big thank you to our audience as well here at the ICC. But Dion Chang, DJ Tira, DJ Oskido, and Kelly Price, thank you so much for your contribution. The conversation will also continue on Twitter, #DBF15, #DBF2015. But for myself, Kukuletu Tele, it's been an absolute pleasure being with you today from this CNBC Africa special, coming to you live from Durban. Until next time, take care.